Plenty of hope was on display during an impressive homestand, and let's discuss the White Sox impressive series win over the Royals and just how much excitement we should have on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan, a contributor for SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the White Sox did something that they haven't done in forever. Win a series over the Royals, and let's discuss how the young rookies gave a glimpse into brighter days during the first segment. Then let's discuss the appropriate level of excitement to have around this club. And finally, it's Monday. Let's do a minor league report, going over who is left that is worth tracking at AAA Charlotte outside of Coastal Montgomery now that Kyle Teel has been called up. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so here's a sign of things moving in the right direction. The White Sox snapped a seven series losing streak to the Kansas City Royals. That's right. The Kansas City Royals had been pasting the White Sox over the last 7 series that these two division rivals hooked up in. And just a month after getting shut out twice by the Royals in Kansas City, and then also losing in embarrassing fashion, remember when the ball just bounced off of Chase Meidroth's head in the 9th inning? It was the Sox who rendered the Royals lineup useless, at least during the first 2 games of the series. I mean, you really haven't been able to say that much in this series. It's usually the Royals that have been rendering the Sox either pathetic, useless, or just embarrassing. And then the Sox gave the Royals a taste of their own medicine, basically. And even more impressive is the Sox actually could have had a sweep, but the 9th inning rally that they had yesterday fell 2 runs shy. Moral victory, though, even in that case, because the White Sox also avoided finishing a great homestand. They avoided having an embarrassing loss to end that homestand on. I mean, if you think about it, the team was staring a 7-2 one-hit defeat in the face. That's right. The White Sox had just 1 hit through 8 innings, but at least it was a Miguel Vargas 2-run shot. But Will Venable's boys, hey, they don't quit. As the Sox bats finally woke up in the 9th, mounted a rally that actually had a chance to win the whole thing in walk-off fashion as they had bases loaded, 2 outs, and you actually had the one guy you probably wanted at the plate, and that was slugger Tim Elko. And had he crushed a grand slam or a bases clearing double, this probably been a different show. However, he struck out swinging to end the game. But still, it's one that is filled with excitement as the Sox flipped the script for the most part on the Royals, thanks in part to 4 rookies who gave a glimpse into better days. Basically, you had 4 rookies in the lineup giving you this thing called hope, giving you this thing called, hey, these guys could be good. Now, I'm not going to get into the fun bad debate. Everydayers, you heard me say this a couple weeks ago. I gave my criteria, at least, for when I'm going to consider this team to be fun bad. And I definitely want them to clear the hurdle of winning 41 games before the season is over, before I say, hey, that's fun bad. Just because, again, granted it was, a little while ago, but I did these types of shows last year. And again, I got to put another dollar in the mentioning the 2024 team. But we did those types of shows, and then it went off the rails to historically horrific. But again, this was a series, and even this was a homestand that showed that, hey, things are now moving in the right direction. It might be incrementally slow. You might have to be incredibly patient, but it was a type of series win where the White Sox actually earned the victory. It wasn't just based on variance or, hey, the White Sox were finally due to beat the Royals. I mean, they won this series with a group of core future pieces leading the way. You had Kyle Teel making his big league debut and already showing that he belongs. I mean, very impressive 3 games. The White Sox top hitting prospect went 1 for 2 with 2 walks, scored a run in his debut. And I loved how he scored the run. I mean, it was on a wild pitch, timed it up perfectly, bolted for home, slides right in. in photographic fashion, basically. I mean, it was impressive. And then he had a multi-hit game on Saturday. And it was also the rookies in that Saturday game teaming up with veteran pitcher Adrian Hauser to win the day. And that was the day that Elko hit a go-ahead 2-run homer in the second. You had Chase Meidroth blasting his second home run of the season in the third. And then Edgar Quero drives in the insurance run in the eighth. And I'm tying Hauser in because he was brilliant on the mound once again, exceeding expectations. And why I tie him in with these rookies is you got to keep rooting for Hauser to be very good, to keep this good run going, because he has the potential then to be moved at the deadline for a viable prospect to join this core. He's got the chance. He's going to be on a dirt cheap deal to at least get you some sort of prospect with core classification status, especially after Luis Robert Jr., who did have 3 RBIs, and I'll get to in a few seconds. Didn't, his trade value is pretty much decreasing by the day. And the other reason why you get pumped is, again, Miguel Vargas crushed his 9th home run of the season yesterday. So you get more and more data that, hey, we've got some core guys to move forward with here. There's this thing called hope. It's amazing. And especially the comeback in the 9th, even though it fell short, because it was looking like here comes a look away and horror type defeat, especially after Jordan Leisure and Bryce Wilson could not keep the game close when the 2 relievers combined to give up 4 runs over the final 2 2/3 innings. And Jordan Leisure, I don't know how much more of a leash you can give him. I think it was Southside Showdown. My editor, Sam Phelan, posted on the X account that I think Leisure's now inherited 13 runners and 8 of them have scored. And Bryce Wilson, I mean, again, thank you for your service last Monday by eating that terrible, by eating those innings up while just getting absolutely shelled and being willing to wear it. But that's about the only contribution he's done this season. And it's still not a great contribution. I mean, at this point, it's time to move on. You only sunk $1.5 million in him. He's not the, swing pitcher that you thought he would be. And he's not even the long reliever that you hoped he'd be, like he was last year with the Brewers. He's not it. It's time to move on. And I'll talk about some candidates that you can move on in the third segment. But the White Sox showed some fight. They got all 9 hitters to the plate in the 9th, and they possibly costed Royals reliever Trevor Richards his job. I mean, he was terrible. I don't even know why the Royals still are even fooling around with him. He's like this year's version of their last year's version of Danny Altavilla, who, by the way, I hope makes me loud wrong. His stuff has looked very, very impressive. And why I want him to make me look loud wrong? Again, more assets to potentially acquire at the trade deadline. Let's get him, onto a contender. And the one thing that I did like too about this was, they did just enough winning, and how they won too is great because it was young pieces leading the way, but still just enough losing to make sure that they can add a potential foundational superstar, much like the team that they were playing this weekend did in 2018. The Royals, hey, they lost just enough to get the number 2 pick in the 2019 draft and get Bobby Witt Jr. And yes, everydayers, I love me some Bobby Witt Jr., and I love for the White Sox to have a stud like him. And there's the opportunity, although again, incrementally slow. We have to be patient because you got to wait till the 2026 draft, and you still have to win the MLB draft lottery. But again, you'd still like to have the best odds when next year's draft projects to potentially have 5 stud core, superstar potential players. So that's why I'm pleased with this homestand. You split the series with the Tigers, take 2 of 3 from the Royals, show the right type of progress too, as this wasn't some variance finally snapping the series losing streak. It was 4 young players making impact, sprinkled in with veterans that you can hope to be dealt with or to be traded with, to trade at the trade deadline, to add more young talent. Again, Luis Robert Jr., 3 RBIs on Friday. He even hustled down the line on what could have been a game-ending double play yesterday to beat a throw and keep that 9th going. However, Friday was just a mirage after he went 2 for 3. He went 0 for 8 the rest of the series with 4 strikeouts. But again, Hauser was great on the mound. Awesome. Danny Altavilla, great in relief. Even Cam Boozer, Steven Wilson, great in relief. And there is the hope with the young pitchers, as Davis Martin had a great start on Friday. Brandon Iser pitched well at the pen. So I like where the White Sox are going, and they even kicked the tires, kicking the tires on Tyler Alexander. Not a bad signing. They signed him after Milwaukee let him go, and the Sox have had a decent run of Brewers cast-off in the, for pitching. So also, if you want to make it from Milwaukee to Chicago in great time, find the Uber driver or vice versa that Alexander got, because the story is he signs, gets into an Uber, and the driver gets him to the park in about an hour and a half and to the game in time that he pitched. He was able to pitch 3 innings. And Mike Vassell had a nice start yesterday too. So lots of excitement. And let's discuss after the break just how much excitement you should have with this team, as there's some fans that might be letting their dreams run a little too wild. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. And I'm a huge fan of the no shells variety. My go-to flavors are the roasted and salted or the honey roasted. I love the roasted and salted because it has that excellent roasted flavor, and it has the right blend of salt that you don't need to chug a gallon of water after consuming a handful. And the honey roasted, it's just an explosion of honey goodness. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you're not done so already. And if you can't catch a show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe to places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. All right, so fan how you want. But I do want to suggest please stop looking at the wild card standings. It's only going to end up frustrating you in the end, because I saw some folks on White Sox social media world, and maybe they were joking, but I did see the tweets pointing out that the White Sox were like only 12 back in the wild card standings after Saturday's win. And I'm also seeing tweets and message board comments about how, let's go sign these free agents next season to put them over the top. And again, I don't want to tell you not to dream, but for example, right now, the wild card, playoffs, thinking that's a bridge too far. And even adding higher price bridge players, that might also be a bridge too far. And the reason is this team still has some talent issues, especially in the batting order and in the bullpen. And Band-Aid Solutions is not going to provide sustained success, because that's the other thing. On one end, I don't want to discourage you from being greedy and be like, hey, maybe, they've had a lot of close losses this year. Maybe as they keep going, they get more experience, they turn some of these close games into wins. But at the same time, you also want to have sustained success and, when this build is completed, not only competing for, being competitive and competing for the division and competing for championships, but having the long window that the last rebuild was supposed to provide. But again, a lot of shortcuts were taken. A lot of, not proper process being followed was taken. So I hate to be a wet blanket, but the other thing I just want to remind everybody about this, hey, they're 12 and a half back or 13 back in the wild card standings. You got to remember, we are 1 week removed, coming off a disappointing series, getting swept against Baltimore and then turning in one of the worst performances of the season against Detroit last Monday. Because really what the season is, it's been a roller coaster. And that's why, hey, you can have excitement on the highs, hey, but just remember, there's going to be some lows. And, when you're on the low point of the roller coaster, sometimes, unless it's like a 60, unless it's Raging Bull where you're going 85 miles an hour, it's not a lot of fun sometimes. So my suggestion is actually choose wisely off the what to get excited about menu. Think of it as the menu. And again, I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but I want to encourage some realism. So for example, in the figurative menu, avoid the, hey, there's the playoffs. Not out of the realm of being a possibility. Yes, it's out of the realm of possibility. They're at 0.1% chance of making the playoffs. Okay? They still have a lot of pieces to add to even get back to being a threat in a wild card race. And again, don't get me wrong. Love what the 4 young guys did in the lineup along with Miguel Vargas. I love being loud wrong about Miguel Vargas. Every day that Miguel Vargas, hits is another day that actually it's fine that I was loud wrong about him last season. Although, again, I still disagree with the process of the trade. And again, it's more of, as Sean Anderson, former host of the show, has pointed out on social media, it's more of a developmental win, not an acquisition win. And also, it still doesn't excuse Vargas from acting like, he was being held hostage last year. And I'm not doubling down because, again, he's proven me wrong. I mean, I thought he was not going to be viable. Although, I was willing to give him a second chance. Go back into spring training shows. But I don't want, it's just really hard to go there and be like, 12 and a half back in the playoffs. Might I suggest instead getting excited about some of the young guys who could help the team contend for a postseason berth in 2027 that are already here and, again, giving positive data. I mean, excited about Teel? Don't blame you. Teel had a nice showing this weekend. But one of the things that I think people are forgetting is he's right now in the honeymoon phase of his big league call-up. And again, not to be with this wet blanket. And I'm not going to try to sound superior here, but why don't you join me in getting excited let's see how he responds to when baseball comes for him. That's actually where I want to go to next. Because I already 3 games, yeah, he looks the part. Showed that he could play the part in a brief audition. But baseball comes for everybody. So the next bar for him to clear is, can he make the adjustment to the adjustment? Edgar Quero, he's going through it right now. Although this series gave some hope, especially when it comes to hitting with runners in scoring position, as he had an outstanding RBI single during that 9th inning rally yesterday. Love seeing it because one of the rough parts that he's been going through is hitting with runners in scoring position. He has a 235 average with a 5.54 OPS with RISP. Find out what it means to me. And it gets worse with 2 outs and runners in scoring position with a 105 average and a 235 OPS. So it gets a sac fly on Saturday and a single yesterday. That's where I get excited. I get excited because, hey, he's starting to show that maybe he's able to break through in crunch situations, in clutch time. And I also would like to see him hit a home run. But I do kind of see what he's sort of doing at the plate. And this is just, it's more of an assumption of just watching him. It looks like he's just trying his best to put together as many good at-bats and get hits while he's absorbing everything else he has to do catching-wise. I mean, he's 22 years old with a lot on his plate, figuratively. And trying to protect the plate is one of those things. I mean, he's got a lot going on. And I love what Chase Meidroth is doing at the top of the order. And I'm still hopeful that Tim Elko can at least be a bottom of the order power bat. Because, yeah, if he's still going to strike out a ton, bat him 7th through 9th where they've had him. And just let him make contact, make hard contact. But I would like to still, see him sprinkle in some more traditional hits if he's not crushing a home run. Because right now, it's pretty much all or nothing. So, yeah, diversify. I think he's got 9 hits, 4 of them are home runs, and only 1 of them are doubles. So not only would you like him to hit more, but let's diversify a little bit. Let's get that average to maybe 220. At least so it's not like, well, he's either going to hit a home run or he's going to be an automatic out. But I do get excited about the potential of him playing first, cheaply and crush rocket home runs. But the White Sox still need more in this lineup to where you can feel confident they're going to be a threat to put up offense every night to compete. And again, the starting pitching has been great to see. And that gets me excited. But there's still growth that's needed. Sean Burke still has to consistently command the ball. Shane Smith has to avoid running out of gas. Hauser has to prove that this is not smoke and mirrors. And if it isn't, trade him for a viable piece that you can move forward with. Let's not go Chris Flexen here. If you can build some trade value, move him. And then hopefully Cannon's back is not a lingering problem when he gets, and then maybe he can get back to having the run he was having before these back problems once he comes off the IL. And yes, I would love to see Kyle Tucker and Kyle Schwarber hit home runs next season for the White Sox. I just don't think the team is at the point where they can be entertaining adding free agents to complete the build because they're still in the early stages of the build. So I guess my suggestion is don't let excitement get you to exaggerations. or don't let excitement get your expectations to the point where you're wanting the team to take shortcuts, because that's what happened during the last rebuild. This club is still 2 or 3 drafts away from where you can say they're doing it right, especially when it comes to the bats. Because after Colson Montgomery gets called up, it's going to be the waiting game for the next truly viable bat that could be a stud in Brandon Montgomery. And that means more talent has to be infused. And also, wouldn't it be nice if some of these young core guys were players that the team actually drafted? Because right now, love getting excited about Meidroth, Teel, and Quero and Elko, but Elko was the only one that the team drafted, and even then, the front office, doesn't seem to be sold. And the other reason why we got to have tempered expectations is Dark Cloud Jerry Reinsdorf still owns the team, at least through 2029. So who knows what money he's going to authorize, and you still have to trust Chris Getz, who the jury is still way out on his ability as a general manager. And honestly, it feels like week to week, again, with these ebbs and flows regarding his promise with the ability to lead this club. He still has to fix the bullpen, and there are pieces to do it in the system, but he seems hesitant to call up the likes of Grant Taylor and Peyton Pallette. Speaking of young talent, it's Monday, so let's do a minor league Monday report. And I want to go over who's still worth tracking at AAA after Colson Montgomery, now that Kyle Teel is up, and that is coming up after the break. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. And that's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you can save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On, making it easy to browse the app for, like, let's say when St. Louis comes to town next week. You can go find a great deal to see the Sox kick off the Cards going from contenders to pretenders tour. Yeah, I'm not sold on the St. Louis Cardinals, and it'd be great if the White Sox can expose them. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, or wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Hopefully you had a good weekend. Mine, again, it was pretty fun. Took my daughter and wife on a picnic on Saturday, and my daughter wanted me to try to fly a kite, and I failed epically. I am not a kite flyer. I could not get this thing, and it was right by Lake Michigan, and I could not get this kite up in the air. Although I think I got ripped off because I bought it at a kite festival last year. It was like $40. My daughter wanted it. I'm like, this thing doesn't look like it's worth $40. It looks like, something I could have made out of a trash bag. Lo and behold, could not get in the air. So if anybody knows how to fly a kite, I could really use some recommendations there. All right. This weekend, when I was getting ready to turn on the Charlotte Knights, as I do try to consume what I can when it comes to minor league wise. If the White Sox on, or especially if they're starting a little bit later, I know Charlotte might be playing a little bit earlier. I want to catch a couple of innings. I do try to, also, again, if the White Sox do have their, if they are getting beat pretty good, or if they're actually the ones laying the beat down, which has happened this season, I sometimes want to switch away to maybe take a look at what's going on in the farm system. So when I went to turn on the Knights this weekend, I was like, with Kyle Teel promoted and Colson Montgomery apparently being a magnet for getting hit by pitches that require him to miss a game or two, because again, he got struck on the hand, although Getz says the x-rays are negative. But I was like, okay, who's worth watching at AAA at least? And when I was looking at the roster, I think, wow, a majority of the Knights are now made up of career minor leaguers and has-beens. And actually, that's actually the sort of roster that it's not the end of the world to have at AAA. As I've come to believe, and I think everydayers, you've heard me say it, I come to believe that the bulk of the development should actually be done at AA. In terms of my process and my theory, low A is just kind of, okay, it's the first weed out, because again, you're drafting all these guys, You're signing all these international free agents, and you're taking them to either the Dominican Summer League or the Complex League, and then eventually you're filtering them up to A ball, low A ball. Okay, it's the first filter. You're trying to establish, okay, who's actually got a legit shot and who's just a fringe prospect. Then at high A, that's again where it's the second filtering out. And then they, once they, those are the guys that you're definitely identifying. Okay, these guys actually are professional baseball players. These are the guys that could have a legit shot to get to the majors. Then you get them to double A, and that's where the development should be really done. That's where like you actually should be forming a team and not having, guys trying to, stab each other in the back and rooting for each other and forming a team and really focusing in on that development. I mean, you should be doing the development all the way through, but that's really where the teaching, this is how the White Sox are going to play baseball, even though it should be done throughout more in the general, but this is the specifics. These are the guys that we want to move forward with, especially pitchers, because again, there's only so many figurative bullets in those arms. Hitters, okay, maybe they do still need some mandatory time at AAA just to see a bit better stuff, even if it is from washed up former big leaguers, because at least it is something close to major league stuff. But otherwise, AAA should just be almost your taxi squad. These are the guys that I'll cover in case we have injuries. And I was thinking to myself then, should I just stick to the Birmingham Barons if I'm going to catch some minor league games, to watch Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, their starts, because Hagen Smith is now back to pitching at, double A, along with Grant Taylor relief appearances, and maybe see if Jacob Gonzalez, William Bergola, and Rico Nishida can be big league players. Should I just tune in also to high A Winston-Salem for Braden Montgomery, Christian Opper, Tanner McDougal, Jarrell Perez, and Sam Antonacci, and then low A Kannapolis for Caleb Bonemer, Javier Mogalian, and George Wolcott, because those are kind of the guys that I'm mostly following. Well, I thought to myself, okay, there's still a few names worth tracking at AAA Charlotte that still could be maybe core players or players that could help the White Sox. And no, I'm not talking about Andrew Vaughn trying to revive his career. He did go 2 for 3 yesterday with a home run. However, I'm really enjoying not seeing him in the lineup. So as much as I would like to actually have him come back up and see if he could be a trade piece, really enjoying him not being in the White Sox lineup. It's kind of nice. And I'm not going to be monitoring Corey Lee either, because he was sent down to make room for Teel, but I know what Lee can do, and that is a backup catcher. And right now it is Teel and Quero time. But here's who's actually worth tracking at AAA. Obviously, Brooks Baldwin, who's actually getting reps in the outfield to work at being a better super utility player. If you want him to fill a role, why not try to be like, you know what, you're not doing a really good job of tracking the ball in the big leagues. Let's send you down to Charlotte, rejuvenate yourself at the plate, and maybe, learn how to track balls off the bat in games that really don't matter. Novel concept. And I do hope the Sox eventually end this Joshua Palacios and Josh Rojas experience to bring Baldwin back. He's got a 343 average with a 1.121 OPS at AAA. Brian Ramos, he feels like he has been forgotten in the Miguel Vargas revival. He's still 23. He's the team's number 12 prospect according to MLB Pipeline. And it's like all the excitement we had for him last season is just gone because, hey, Miguel Vargas. Now, and the other thing is I think we forget that there was talk that he was going to start the season as the DH after flashing, again, that potential last season before a wrist injury hampered what he could do in the field during spring training. And he still has that potential, although not producing well at the plate with a 216 average, but he does have a modest 722 OPS. And I wonder if that wrist is still nagging him, or does he need to go back to Arizona for a hitting session? Because I just wouldn't give up on him yet. And I know they have been moving him to the outfield. And honestly, I would explore all options, even if he is just a bridge right fielder until Braden is ready. But I think now is the time to give him, some reps at other places, and then also give him some help or some rest. Don't just be like, that, not worth it. He is showing some power, though, when he, does get a hold of one. He's got 6 home runs so far. So that's one to keep track of. Drew Baker, the player the Sox got back in the Matt Thaiss trade, as he might be the only outfielder the Sox should possibly see if there could still be something left. Because Corey Julks, Dominic Fletcher, and Zach DeLoach, they're all guys on this on Charlotte that the team has already DFA'd and clearly views as just in case of emergency break glass. Well, he's got a 579 OPS since coming to the Knights. In terms of pitching, again, Paulette, definitely keep an eye on. With Meidroth and Quero graduating from prospect status, at least MLB Pipeline has graduated them. Paulette is now ranked 28th in the prospect pool. He's had, 3 great outings for the Knights, 2 rough ones, including yesterday where he failed to register an out, gave up 5 runs walked 2, hit 2 batters, and that's where it's scary because, again, Charlotte's a bandbox. So you want to look at, okay, are they at least not, giving runners free passes? If a guy at Charlotte gets a hit, okay, that's what that park is designed to do. But you just don't want to give extra outs to a lineup. And he did that. And he only gave up 1 hit, too. So let's see how he bounces back. Tyler Schweitzer, he's been interesting. He was great in his start against Buffalo 2 weeks ago. And he's had some nice starts, but then he gets tagged like he did on June 5th at Truist Field. I think he's an example of a guy that's definitely gotten, bitten by playing at a bandbox ballpark. And it's hard to get a gauge on him, but he is the Sox 21st ranked prospect. And he has, when I've seen him pitch, he has shown some promise that maybe he could be a big league pitcher. Again, looked really good in Buffalo. Winkelmann Gonzalez, the pitcher acquired in the Crochet trade. He's been moved to the reliever. He's had a couple of nice outings outside of got roughed up in Buffalo 2 weeks ago. And then there's Jairo Iriarte, the pitcher, one of the 2 pitchers the Sox got back in the Dylan Cease trade, who was so bad this year that he got pulled from game action and got sent to Arizona for basically pitch school. The Sox number 7 prospect, though, is back in Charlotte. He did have 1 good outing last weekend in his return and one where he did not have a clean inning. So definitely that's one of the guys that you want to follow to see, can he at least still reach his floor? And that is being a very good reliever. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss what the Sox could do in next month's draft with James Fox at FutureSox.net. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding the White Sox showing a lot of hope on this homestand. What is the appropriate level of excitement? And this week's Minor League Monday report. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X for me, Twitter, at ToddJDub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.